Hey guys, have you ever wanted multiple DHCP IP addresses from one physical interface? Well, that's possible now because we have the IP Route 2 package and we're smart cookies. So basically, the goal of this is to have one physical interface, one Ethernet cable going into a computer or something somewhere running Linux or a POSIX-based system. It's probably possible in Windows, but no one gives a shit about Windows, so let's not even go there. The aim is to get multiple interfaces running through DHCP. Now, you'll know that if you've ever made sub-interfaces in Debian, for example, or Ubuntu, you can't use DHCP to get addresses for these sub-interfaces because they share the same MAC address as the physical interface. So if you have a physical interface and maybe 4 or 5 sub-interfaces, they will all use the same MAC address because, well, they are the same physical interface. So we can work around this using the IP Route 2 package, which gives us basically a utility to get around this. So we're going to be using the interface type MAC VLAN, which specifies a VLAN type of connection that generates or is provided with a MAC address. So we're basically making a ton/tap adapter on the fly using this command, and it's all pretty much abstracted from us. It's all nice and well done. So let's have a look at an example of where you do this. Well, perhaps you have an ISP with cable or satellite, and you get an IP through a DHCP server, and you're allowed to have multiple IPs. Perhaps your modem is in bridging mode, and maybe your modem only has one port, and you want to plug that port into a Linux box somewhere or a server somewhere, and you want to use multiple IPs, but you don't want to use more than one cable. Well, you'd use this to grab multiple IPs that you can use to host different things on, or perhaps you're in an enterprise environment or a lab, and you need to migrate a server, and your IP addresses are statically leased out through DHCP. Maybe you want to put your existing and new IP on the same interface to save you having to go and switch cables and stuff around. So, this is all ways to do this. So let's have a look at the interface we're going to be playing with today. That's F0. At the moment, it's not up. Well, it shouldn't be up, and here it is. So it hasn't been given an IP. So why don't we give it an IP address? There we go. It's given an IP address from the DHCP server over at my ISP, which is Telstra. And yeah, that's easy and done. How can we possibly define multiple adapters on this interface? So first of all, we're going to make a custom script file, and I'm going to install it. I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it in my network directory. I'm going to call it vint. And after that, I'm going to chmod it. So let's edit the file first, shall we? Alright, so in this file, hashbang, I'm going to add commands that will add virtual adapters to the physical interface that we just got an IP address for. So the command is, after you've installed the IP route package, IP link add link, and this is the existing adapter here, and we specify a name for the new adapter we want to use. So I'm going to call this Mac1 or Mac0, and the type is Mac VLAN, as we specified before. Now, this command is excellent, except it generates a MAC address for us. And as morally sound and good-hearted IT people, we shouldn't generate a MAC address on the fly like this and send it to an ISP DHCP server because someone else could have the MAC address or it might not work properly. We don't want to screw up remote infrastructure. So we should probably use a MAC address that we already have at home in maybe an old piece of hardware that we don't use anymore, or something that isn't exposed to the external internet. So always try to use a MAC address that you already have with you. Now, I'm going to do just that. I'm going to copy and paste an address I have already defined that works. And the command is IP link, add link, existing interface name, and address. And then you can add your MAC address. And of course, copy and paste is not working for me. So there we go. That's the address I'm going to use. Please find your own MAC address. Even though I have a few that I can use, please don't use that. Trying to avoid this at all costs. You know, don't go and generate a random address. Try to do this as much as you can. Yeah, that's basically the script. And we're going to use this in the interfaces file to add this interface every time we bring the physical interface up. So let's go back to the interfaces file now and add this. So this is a pretty typical interfaces file. We're going to add the interface we just made into the auto statement. And we're going to specify that this interface is going to get an address through DHCP. Of course, I should have mentioned that you can add as many of these as you want. You can add MAC 1 up to MAC 9999, depending on how many IP addresses you want. I'm just going to do 1 for this example. Now, we need to specify under this statement for the physical interface that we want to run this script every time that this interface is brought up. Post up, etc. Network. Did I store it in Vint? Pretty sure I stored it in Vint. So let's give that a go. And everything from here on should just work rather nicely. So let's do service, networking, restart. You can see here that F0 has been given an address. Ignore the receive packet failed. I don't know why it does that. I think that's just my modem. Sorry, up there F0 was releasing its IP address and now it's asking for a new address. Here we go. And MAC 0 also has an address. So if we have a look in our ifconfig now, let me just close this window. We can see that MAC 0 has an address and F0 has an address, and they're both externally routable IP addresses. You can probably try this. Like, for example, I'm with Telstra, so it's a bit hit and miss. But if I added another statement here, and I went to my Vint file and also added another one, so let me just copy and paste this one for speed. It probably wouldn't work. I would also have to remove this statement. And if I restarted services, yeah, I have no idea why it does this. The receive packet failed. It's my modem being horrible. We can see that F0 is going to get an IP address. It just takes an exuberant amount of time. Nearly there. Nearly there. There we go. And we can see here that MAC 0 got an IP address. And we didn't get an IP address. Oh, you want to know why? Because we didn't add it to the auto statement. Yeah, I don't expect MAC 1 to get an IP address. You can see here that it has an automatically sort of generated MAC address, which shouldn't work. I don't expect it to work, and it'll probably just say failed in the end. So that's how you do it. You might have obviously whichever situation you're in, spoofing a MAC address if you're in an internal network is probably going to be a bit better than doing it on the World Wide Web with your ISP infrastructure. You should always use a universal MAC address that you own somewhere that you're not going to rob from someone who doesn't know how to use a computer. So keep that in mind when you're doing this. Alrighty, that's how you do it.